Hi, everyone. This is Susan in Nashville, substituting for on your roster of substitute teachers. Uh, Today, I want us to look at the screensaver. What I'm looking at is a heart kind of made with barbed wire with birds flying inside it. And sometimes this is what I feel like. I feel like I have a heart, but it's made of barbed wire. I'm I've got something ready to fly, but I've got the barbed wire and it is steeled to protect me. But at the same time, it stops some of my inner nature from leaving. So the barbed wire protects and is a barrier. So I want you guys to think of that as we go through this talk. Thanks, John. Um, About 95% of this talk is from Pema Children's Practicing Peace in Times of War. Rather than read the book to you, which I did think about, I decided to put some of it in my own words, but there are a couple places where her words are so good I just couldn't even begin to try to do anything different. So all credit to Pema Children for this. The various subjects of war and peace are nuanced. We have a war that reflects a place, like the Korean War, or even a description of a perception of war, like the War of Northern Aggression, or even a piece of fiction, like a book by Leo Tolstoy. People make war to obtain peace, and they cause infinite harm in the war making, which forces people to submit to an artificial peace. It's just a time period without constant weaponry and surveillance by a body of government. In addition to the wars that are fought with trained armed troops, there's a spectrum of war or aggression or even bullying that goes beyond geographic boundaries and is related to an entire group of people. For example, a race, a religion, the people who aren't housed, the LGBTQ community, or even a philosophy like communism, or even an internal war of what snack to eat next, celery or chocolate. And I will always choose the chocolate. Most of us don't have any diplomatic power or skills to stop a war that's being fought overseas or even the war about healthcare in America. So the rest of this talk is going to be addressing how we can make peace with the wars around us, between us, and in us. We all have an experience of war in our daily lives. If we get home from work after a hard day and the dog has pooped on the floor and nobody cleaned it up, the delivered groceries are wilted and melted on the porch, and we may react and yell at the person who didn't walk the dog or call customer service and berate them. Um, my least favorite is getting cut off by the person in the Tesla truck on the interstate. And I love to honk my horn at them and wave with a forceful finger gesture. Those things, I just call them angle cars because there's no round things on there. Um, Another example of war in our daily life is when our next door neighbor proudly displays the banners and the signs of a presidential candidate whom they supported 6 months ago. It wasn't the same person we voted for, and our small driveway conversations cease. We react with feelings of anger, violence, and fear. The very roles we learned as children and the ways we learn to separate our identities from others now harden our hearts to exclude others and to protect our identities, creating the other. We're only trying to protect ourselves, to maintain our roles, our lifestyles, but our hearts harden and our distress increases. So I want to break that cycle down just a little bit. Pema breaks it down by saying something happens. We begin to tighten. Our muscles in our jaw or chest or mouth or fist or our teeth clench. We find ourselves breathing more in our upper chest instead of in our lower chest. And we begin to close down feelings that aren't related to anger or fear. And the chain of misery is ignited. Our flame starts. We're for or against something. We got cut off again. Um, our feelings of anger, aggression, craving, pride, jealousy, and envy flourish. Our thoughts fan the flame to a roaring fire of labeling and blaming. Like people always feel entitled to bypass a line of traffic and not wait their turn in line. Or those crazy country music fans, for those of you who are experiencing a lot of fans and carnivals this week. Our histories, our personal histories, add to the repetition of how we react. Our familiar habitual patterns, like blaring my horn or following so close that it is unsafe and I'm about to create another wreck, um, is one of my familiar habitual patterns. And it's really easy to slip into those patterns because we've done them so many times in our lives. But slipping into those patterns magnifies the misery, the dis-ease, and our disconnect. And the misery waits for the next opportunity to rear its head and become more ingrained in us and have another chain reaction. It's so easy for us to fall into those well-worn grooves. We can react by hurling insults to people, by complaining at work, by yelling at people, by posturing, anything like that. So, a more contemporary thing that most people on this call may have, maybe not Vivienne, but most people on this call may have had similar reactions this year as I had when President Trump cut funding to research, healthcare, DEI funding, and a lot of Americans supported it. That was a flame for me. I want to use that as an illustration of how my history and my feelings worked with that. The thoughts strengthened my fire. All my values about healthcare were worthless. Decades of research and hard-won values of DEI initiatives were worthless. I can't believe that I live in a country that is so opposed to the things I value the most. Those were my thoughts that strengthened my fire. For my history and my response, in my history, my dad um, discarded me a lot. What things were important to me were not important to him. I had some beautiful artwork that I did, and I asked him to look at it, and he just took the newspaper and put it in front of my artwork and didn't even look. I felt really small and insignificant and not valued. And I was so angry that I pursued fields that he thought weren't real. Um, Another one on my history is uh, men were entitled to getting PhDs while women had professions to support their families in case their husbands died. So it's all about supporting the men, but the women can't do anything of their own. The emphasis was on how women filled in and not their value. So I was sad that I wasn't worth considering getting a PhD education and resigned that women's sole purpose was to support the family. So I got really angry and I rebelled too. I proved that I could get the highest level of certification in three fields: social work, healthcare executives, and healthcare quality, and support a family. Didn't get the PhD, it cost too much, but all the other things I did by myself. Um, Unfortunately, this just magnified more misery for me, more dis-ease, more discontent. And I did all that to prove something to someone, to prove some cultural norms. And what happened with me and my dad? He said, "Congratulations on those accomplishments." But it was perfunctory. It was because he had to. It wasn't what I really wanted, full acceptance for who I was and what I valued. It wasn't anything to me except for him acknowledging I got a piece of paper. So that's just my cycle of where things went with our uh, when we had a new president and I was a little worried about things. So in terms of the cycles themselves, in these cycles of aggression, we become self-righteous about our point of view. what is more right than another person's? My opinion is more right than yours. How can they believe that? And these people are our next door neighbors, our across the street neighbors, the people we work with. In our self-indignation, we reject the other's perspective. We say that our point of view is valued. We become the very thing that we're righteous about. We become a closed, angry, fearful, hardened heart, opposed to a closed, angry, fearful, hardened heart with a different perspective. Each side is angry at each other, and each side is angry at the people in the middle who have thoughts in both areas. Everyone is outraged at everyone else's wrongness. Our aggressive reaction matches theirs, and we become the very thing that we hate, an angry, polarized, rigid group. All of the hardened hearts can justify hatred of the other because of what they represent, what they say, what they do. Our reactions, our words, our actions create more aggression and pain in others and for ourselves. Now, these next two things I'm going to say are direct quotes from Pema. I could not even begin to make them anything else. They were just so wonderful. As long as humans keep strengthening our anger and self-righteousness with our thoughts, our words, and actions, the anger and self-righteousness will never go away. We are called to have courage and do something different than the habitual response. Instead of clinching our views with indignation, we could embrace the uneasiness that is left when concrete duality dissipates. Staying with the tender heart cultivates the seeds of peace in this world and hopefully will multiply in number as anger and hard-heartedness become less prevalent over time. Instead of wishing that the leaders of the other people would be crushed, Pema would call us back to the hope that those people who are oppressed and the people who are oppressors have a chance to let hatred be replaced by love. Instead of sinking into self-absorption and rightness, there is still a chance to let their suffering and our suffering be linked with the suffering of all, whether they are harming or helping or frozen in place. There is still a chance to soften what is rigid in their hearts, the fear, the self-righteousness, the aggression, and to work on that cruelty. Now, in the screensaver that we saw at the beginning, oh, wait, we didn't see that screensaver. Take that back. We also have a chain of misery and and barbed wire with our hearts in it. I think part of Pema's hope for us is that we break some of that barbed wire so we are less protected, so we are less keeping people out, and we are more one. We may not be able to change the circumstances of the other today, but what we can do is we can shift our perspective and dissolve the hatred that we have in our minds. Pema would ask us if, instead of reacting historically, which for me was rebelling, and instead of polarizing ourselves from the others, like, I'm going to show you, we could let go of whatever storyline that is. Cutting funding. My dad doesn't value me. Let go of the storyline, but connect with the feeling that it has, the anger, the resentment, the envy, the fear, and connect with our vulnerability, our soft spot. I really love everything Pema says. She has such beautiful and true words, but I'm a little bit more concrete than that. I need directions. So I tried to make directions out of, out of what she said. And this is what I came up with. When we feel our body clenching, whether it's in our mouth, in our teeth, in our grimace, in our breathing. When we see those sensations that are related to resentment or discrimination, jealousy or complaining or anger, be patient. Pause. Wait. Give yourself permission not to go down to your habitual path that ends up making us into mirror images of the rigid, inflexible diatribe and silos us from the others. Pause. Refrain from acting. Refrain from speaking out in aggression. Stop listening to your thoughts to protect yourself and to seek revenge. Connect with your heart. Be vulnerable, honest, and gentle about your anger, fear, rage, revenge, because those are all real parts of you. We need to be honest with ourselves that we have them. Be vulnerable with ourselves and gentle. Many other people share those feelings with us. She asks that we not act on them. Stay with our vulnerability, our uneasiness, our anguish, our discomfort. Have the courage to be fearless with all those feelings. The longer we are on our spiritual journey, the more we learn that there is no resolution for those uncomfortable feelings. We want to think that everything can be predictable and secure and happy and come up with a defined, concrete, happy, content resolution. And humans are wrong about that. We may have a resolution for this second, but it may not be the resolution that we would have in 5 minutes. Pema teaches about the truth of impermanence, the truth of the fleeting, groundless nature of all things. The truth of impermanence doesn't have a concrete floor, doesn't have a pillar against which we can prepare to fight and be stronger. We learn through time and through this work to embrace patience, loving kindness, and gentleness. The feeling of the discomforting energy, but there is no resolution for those feelings. We discover joy and happiness and inner peace that flow from being at home with ourselves, from sitting with the moodiness of the energy until it rises, dwells, and passes away. Rises, dwells, and passes away. It doesn't resolve into something solid. We become curious about our mind and our heart in our meditation. Who am I? What gets in the way of my innate capacity to live in peace, joy, and love? What gets in the way of my ability to channel these in the world? The aggression that can close us down prevents us from being curious, from learning, and forces us into something so solid that it breaks, dividing people into winners and losers by fences that haven't yet cracked. We have a choice to open or close. We have a choice to harden or soften, to hold our seat or to strike out. We are faced with those choices multiple times a day. When we are faced with tension, we either act habitually, or we can choose to act habitually, or we can choose another path. It takes a lot of courage not to participate in the office complaints about work. But even that is feeding a pool of aggression and causes suffering. Enjoy our imperfections with gentleness. Be patient with ourselves when we make mistakes. Soften up as we practice gentleness and loving kindness. Appreciate our efforts and the warmth in the world. Try to see ourselves in others, other people who are escalating their suffering just as we do. And notice when other people catch themselves just like we do and give us their gift of fearlessness. Trust in the basic goodness of ourselves and all the beings of this world. Each one of us just want to be happy and not suffer. John, you can end the recording.